everybody and welcome back to the channel, and if you're here for the very first time, it's lovely to meet you. I'm Jane and my husband Mike does everything behind the camera. We're British, early retirees, we have no debt, we've paid off the mortgage and we live a thrifty, frugal and money-saving life here in Brittany in northwest France. And every Wednesday we invite you in for a mid-week money chat. This week's mid-week money chat is all about saving money, about being organised when it comes to cooking meals at home and preparing lunches to take into work. Because we always say on this channel, the biggest money saver ever is cooking and eating at home. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is sharing with you some kind of systems and management and time and management. And my top tips, my really useful top tips, are at the end of the video. So make sure you stay tuned to the end. And if you enjoyed this video today, make sure you hit the like button. Now, at the beginning of the video, I always share with you that we are early retirees and we left our full-time employment in the UK in 2018. But when we were there, we used to be away from our house, working and commuting for 10.5 hours a day. So to fit in a frugal life on top of that, we used to have to be really, really organised. And on top of that, as well as that, I used to do exam marking and I used to do private tutoring as well. So I had more work on top of that as well. So what we're going to do now is run through what an organised week looked like for us. If you're going to cook at home, if you're going to meal prep at home, you do need an organised house. Because it's not just cooking that gets done in a house, is it? There's everything else as well. So I'm going to run through something that we used to do on a Friday night that just made such a difference to our lives. We used to get home together, and as soon as we got through the door, the first thing that we used to do on a Friday night was clean our house together. And it used to take us an hour. So Mike would do his half, I would do my half. That was 2 hours of cleaning. That was 2 offices, 1 bedroom. That was a bathroom, a downstairs half bathroom, a living room, a dining room and a kitchen. And all of that used to get cleaned. The laundry would get done, the bedding would get changed on our bed. And that, believe it or not, gave us a huge head start to the weekend. Always on a Friday night we used to cook something so quick and so simple. It might just be a baked potato in the microwave with something that I've prepared to go in that baked potato a day or 2 before, and then we just might have something that simple. And then on that Friday night, there was other organisational things that we used to do. So we used to do things like the stock check. Mike would be standing there with his notepad and I would be with my head in the fridge telling him what we had, and then my head in the freezer telling him what we had, and then in my pantry cupboards. So then I had that and I'd go, cheers Mike, and he would often go off to do things after that if it was a light evening, like clean the car or cut the grass, and I would go ahead and then that's when I would start my meal plan. So stock check and then get the meal plan done from what I had first, and then after that, if I had any more meals to plan from that, I'd write my shopping list. Saturday mornings for me and Mike used to start bright and early in the morning, not 5. We used to give ourselves a lie-in until 6:30 on a weekend, and then we would be up, showered and out and in the car and off to the supermarket and be there for when it opened. Our supermarkets often opened at 7, 7:30, 8 in the morning, and it meant that we could get our shopping done. We used to shop in Aldi in those days, and it had a small car park, so you did have to get there early. They had good staff who had all the shelves stocked when we went in there in the morning. So that meant I could be home with my shopping on a Saturday morning, usually by 9 o'clock. And it was then on a Saturday morning I could do some batch cooking. Now, when my kids were young and living with us at home, I used to have to make stuff to pack into their packed lunch boxes. So I would make stuff. I would make tray bakes, I would make cake, I would make flapjacks, I would make jam tarts. I would make those things that would go into their packed lunches. I would make soup for the week ahead. I might do some batch cooking. I might make some casseroles. I might make some bolognese sauce. I might make some chili. I might make some meat pies or something on that Saturday. So Saturday morning for me was all about getting as much cooked as I possibly could. Soups was a great one. I don't know if you've heard of the Systema soup pots. I used to make the soup and put them in the soup pots, stick them back in the freezer when they were cooked so I could just take them out the next day or the next day for lunches. I want to have a quick chat with you now about meal planning. Meal planning does not have to be elaborate. You are not Gordon Ramsay. You are not Julia Child. You just have to get food on the table for your family. Whether it's you does the cooking, your partner does the cooking, you do it together. It just needs to be as nutritious as you possibly can make it. And you don't have to have a vast repertoire. I would say you can easily have 10 to 20 meals in your repertoire on repeat. So that means every 20 days you start back on the menu again, and that's fine. If you get tired of it after a couple of weeks or months, then you can start inventing something new. Let's talk about each evening. You've got in from work, you've eaten something that you've prepared earlier. Let's talk about this cycle and how you build in these habits to make it easier every single day you come in from work. So you eat what you've eaten, make sure that you wash up and clean up your kitchen straight away. There is absolutely nothing worse than coming back to it an hour later or coming back to that the next morning. It's just awful and you really don't feel like getting ahead. So make sure you've got a good routine. I used to cook, Mike used to wash up. I could then be getting on with something else. And what I used to do in the evening was we would make the lunches for the next day. Mike would make his lunch, I would make my lunch, and it was very simple. But it was always packed the night before. Invariably, it was a sandwich. And we would put things in the sandwich that wouldn't go soggy overnight. So I wouldn't put tomatoes in a sandwich or cucumbers in a sandwich, but I would put lettuce in there. And as British people butter their bread, it creates like a waterproof barrier, keeps the bread and the sandwich nice and moist. So make the sandwiches the night before. And the other thing that we would do when the children were at home is we'd set the table for breakfast. So on the breakfast table would go the butter, would go the jam if they were having toast the next day, would go their cups. I would have the coffee machine ready the night before. I would set the coffee machine the night before so I could come downstairs and switch it on. Back in the days of when the water used to drip onto the ground coffee. And then, in the same way, after each meal, the table was cleared and the table was laid for the next meal. So after breakfast in the morning, I would clear the table, which takes seconds. It literally takes seconds. Clear everything, put it in the dishwasher, wipe it, wipe the table mats, and then often we would use things like our cloth serviettes the same for the next day. So we'd use them for breakfast, we would use them for the evening meal. And I would put cutlery out, I would put the glasses out and just lay the table. So when I'd come in the evening, I wouldn't need to do it. So like I said, in the evening, we would prepare our lunch for the next day. It might be that I put some leftovers into small tubs, and we invested in a brand called Systema that we got rid of. I think I gave them to friends and colleagues when we left. It was like, I'm never going to need to take a packed lunch to work ever again. I will give these away. But we used them for about 5 years, so they were very good quality. So I would pack leftovers to take to lunch. It might be soup, it might be leftover bolognese, it might be lasagna, it might be sandwiches. But it would always be in the fridge each of us had a lunchbox ready to go. In there as well might be an apple, there might be a piece of snack, something like a piece of flapjack that I might have made or not. And there might have been a yogurt in there and the spoon, so it was ready. And something that we used to take to work were flasks of hot coffee and drinks. it's something to do if your workplace doesn't provide them or it doesn't have the facilities, is have your flask washed out. So you come home from work, you wash your flask out, you wash out your water bottles, sterilize them if you want to. I used to use like a tiny squirt of bleach and wash mine out so it got the coffee stains out of them, and then leave them on the side ready for the next day. And with the children, when they were at home, if it was a warm day at school, their water bottles would go in the fridge with their lunch boxes. So let's talk now about the last thing I might do in the evening before I sort of like call it a day, which would be about 7 o'clock, my kitchen's done, closed, finished. And that would be before I go to bed, I'm checking the meal plan for the next day. I make sure if there's anything I need to get out, if I've meal prepped, that we're going to have, chicken thighs and I'm going to cook those the next day. I make sure that the night before I've got them out of the freezer to defrost overnight. Some people choose to defrost them on the side in their kitchen, if their kitchen, like mine, was unheated and cool and they were covered. Some people choose to defrost in the fridge. The choice is yours. But I would make sure the night before, if anything needed to come out of the freezer for my meal plan for the next day, I had it out the freezer. Let's talk morning routines. So we would be up in the morning. There's only one bathroom in our house, so we had to make sure that one of us was in and out of the bathroom quicker than the other. Whilst one of them was waiting, that could be when we were either making the coffee or getting the breakfast ready, because when we worked, we used to eat something before we went to work, usually just a piece of toast. Anyway, there was a morning routine, and then there were things that I would do in the morning. Mike would take the dogs out for a walk, and in the morning, I would prep the evening meal. So that might mean putting everything of my ingredients in the slow cooker, chicken, vegetables, some kind of seasoning in there, some kind of stock in there, switching it on, getting that ready. I might then peel some vegetables. I might peel some carrots. I might shred some cabbage. I might take some beans out of the freezer. I might peel some potatoes. And what I would do with potatoes, if it was this winter, if it was cool, I would peel them, I would put them in water, and I would put a good squirt of lemon juice in there. If it was vegetables I didn't want to leave in water, I would prep them, put them in a bowl, put a plate over the top of them, and put them in the fridge. So when I came in the evening, my slow cooker was ready, or whatever I was going to cook was defrosted and ready, and my vegetables were prepped. I then make sure that we take our lunches out, that we've got our drinks ready to go, and everything is in our work bags. Sometimes we went by car, sometimes we went by train, and they were in our bags and ready to go. I did say to you I'd keep my top tips to the end. And this one is so important if you have busy careers like Mike and I had, was to keep a really, really good calendar. So on your calendar was your everything that you did personally and everything that impacted on your organisation for your home on a Friday. I was on a rota as a mini bus driver in the school that I was in on a Friday morning. It could be on that Friday morning that I was the bus driver who took the kids to football or to their swimming lessons or things like that, because I worked in a pupil referral unit with SEN children. So I could think to myself, well, that Friday is going to be a tad stressful. I'm going to have had that in the ear and it's going to be difficult. And then I'm going to come back and then we're going to have a quick 20-minute lunch break. Oh, and then we're going to go into a 2.5 hour staff training session in the afternoon. Oh, I might be leading some of that training. So having a good calendar and knowing on a certain day that it's going to be warp speed is being able to adapt your meal plan for that day. That would be the day, for example, that I might come home and say, on that day, we're going to have baked potatoes and baked beans, or we're going to have soup and sandwiches. It's flat out that day. So keep a good calendar. Check your calendar every Friday night for the week ahead. Check your calendar, make sure you're populating your calendar. Get it in your phone as well. Set alarms for it. Make sure that your alarm tells you a week ahead, 5 days ahead, 4 days ahead, that you've got this coming up, that you've got a haircut, or you're taking the children to the dentist, or you're picking up the children from school, that they're going for an eye test on that day, or you have got parents' evenings. And just keep a good calendar. It's essential to being organised when you've got a family and you're running a career at the same time. The next one is to prepare in advance for the days where you are going to feel tired. Always have meals which are your backup. Always think to yourself, oh, it's going to be a hell of a day on Friday, it's going to be really busy on Monday, or we know there's roadworks that they've put in place on the A38. So we're going to have to go home via Launceston and it's going to take us 2 hours to get home. On that day, I'm going to make sure that I don't leave anything in the slow cooker because it could dry up by the time I get home. But I'm going to make sure on that day that I shopped and planned for a frozen pizza on that day. So always have things in your repertoire that are easy. You can always have eggs on toast. You can always have scrambled eggs. You can cook things in advance like bacon and sausages and keep them cooked in the freezer. Pull them out, defrost them. You can always make yourself a sandwich and you can always have soup, and it's okay. So prepare for your off days. My final tip is really make the most of your energetic days and your really organised days. My organised day was always a Sunday. So on a Sunday, I would always cook a good Sunday lunch, a good roast meal, and I would plate that up, 2 meals on that day, and then 2 meals the next day. When the kids were at home, it would be I would make ourselves a huge pot of stew or a big casserole, something that I could just put the pot in the fridge the next day, take it out and reheat it. Or I could make extra mashed potato that could just come out the next day and just be microwaved. So there's my top tips. Let's run through those really quickly. Keep a good calendar. You're going to have busy days. Plan meals for those busy days. The next one, always plan on those busy days to have something really, really easy. It will keep you out of the takeaway. And finally, make the most of that energy when you've got it on your good days. Plan ahead, cook something a bit extra, maybe for the freezer or even just the next day. We love to hear from you, and we know you love to read the comments as well. Leave your top tips below for being organised with meals. How did you go out for 10.5 hours a day and come home and get that meal on the table? How did you manage to get everything done at the weekend? Talk about those housework tasks that you have to do as well. How did you fit in cutting the grass, cleaning the windows, taking children for haircuts, taking children to all their social activities and getting all of that done simultaneously? Love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye for now.